Before we talk about the new album, I'd like to go back to the beginning quickly. Do you have a first musical memory? Something that stuck with you?
That's a really difficult one. The other day I was thinking about, I mean, I come from a classical family. My father is a composer, my mom was a music teacher, both retired now. But I do have a memory that I have two brothers and one sister, and I think one morning we went into the living room. It was really early. We started singing in English. We didn't really know any English, but we were just making the sounds that sounded English because we knew it from the pop music. And we were just like acting we were some kind of band on stage or something. I think that must have been really young actually, but yeah, that was quite a funny one. I think other memories are of me going to classical concerts, which I didn't really like back then, sitting there, you know, listening to this really boring music that I didn't understand, being a 6-7-year-old or whatever. Yeah, things like that.
When did you start appreciating classical music, that kind of thing?
I think that took a long time because if it's something that you don't have a choice in, we had to really go to these concerts. They were just dragging us along, and I think in retrospect, it's probably a good thing because we were there and we did get the education from it. But if you really have to go, then it's not necessarily something you really enjoy.
Well, I believe you played the violin when you were younger. Was that something then that you enjoyed?
I did enjoy it, I think, especially in the beginning. My parents wanted us all to play an instrument, which, again, I think is a really good thing. However, they were quite strict in it. We had to practice for 1 hour. I did start the violin because one day my brother and I were home, and my mom invited this violin teacher to come over because she wanted my older brother to play the violin. And as soon as she came in and unpacked the violin, he ran off and he wasn't interested. And I was standing there, and then my mom was like, "Oh, why did you give it a go?" So that's how I started playing the violin. I think I did enjoy it in the beginning, and there were a lot of nice things to do, like doing weekends where I was going to play the violin in a little orchestra with other kids and things like that. The fact that I had to play for 1 hour every single day, practice, instead of playing outside, running around, you know, that wasn't always a nice thing, but I sure did enjoy it.
Okay. Looking back at that period and also that kind of music, has it taught you something about music that you still use now?
I'm sure it does. Like it's hard to say that it hasn't been an influence. However, if you ask me, can you say how it's been influencing me? I don't really know, but I'm sure it's taught me a way to listen to melodies and to come up with melodies and things like that. I mean, playing a violin is not a very good necessary skill when you're making electronic music. I would have preferred to play piano actually, which is something that my older brother ended up doing. So maybe I should have switched places with him, although he's also a producer, so it comes in handy for him now. But the violin, it's a monophonic instrument almost. Of course, you can play some chords, but it's a bit limited. So I think you really learn about how to first of all maybe be part of an orchestra, or other than that be a solo player, and yeah, I'm sure that's been an influence.
Well, at what point then did your musical orientation shift to electronic music? Was it a certain moment?
I think so, yeah. In the beginning, when I was a teenager, I was most of all interested in guitars. That's also why later on I switched my violin for guitar, because all my friends were playing guitar. They had electric guitars. I wasn't allowed to have one because it was not a real instrument, you know. My parents thought, but they had electric guitars, and I loved them. You know, all the distortion, and I was listening to all kinds of like indie rock music and the stuff that I thought was cool back then, and everything that had to do with synthesizers or electronic music, house music, whatever. That was, you know, kind of the other side that I didn't want to have anything to do with. I think that changed when I got a little bit older, maybe 17, maybe early 18 or something, when I heard bands like the Chemical Brothers on the radio. I was listening to the VPRO a lot, which is Dutch national channel, like the BBC. And that's where I heard all these new electronic artists and acts that were playing and making music that sounded not as electronic and as anonymous as I knew from other like house music genres or something. So Underworld, Chemical Brothers, things like that. They really caught my ear because they were sounding a bit more like independent and well, it's not rock influence, but there was something I could really relate to.
And then at what point then, were you already making music at that point?
No, well, I wasn't playing in bands, but I was nowhere near to making any electronic music.
Okay, so what then got you to commit to making electronic music?
I think basically as soon as I got into electronic music, I was really digging. I was really eager to learn about what was out there, and I really started going to the record store a lot more often, digging in all the CDs, the compilations of electronic music, house music, trance, acid, anything that was electronic. I really was interested in, and I was really trying out every single genre. And there were so many things that really caught my ear, like the hard minimal techno I really loved back then, and then I loved the trippy aspect of acid and some trance things, and I think that was the most fun time I've ever had with electronic music, because everything was new and everything sounded like exciting and stuff, and I was a completely empty. I didn't have any preoccupations with any musical genres, so I think that's the best way to experience music in general. Anyway, I really realized soon that most music was coming out on vinyl, so I started buying that as well, because previously I only had CDs. And when I started DJing, in the beginning I also bought all kinds of different music, but then I focused on techno at some point, because that was the music that I felt was the most interesting for me to play. Also house music, but and then I think the next step was very simple. You know, I just thought, why don't I start just making this music myself? Because it sounds like something you can quite easily make yourself. So let's just do it.
Why did you think techno was best suited for you?
I don't know. It was probably you know, I think it's listening to a lot of music, thinking. I don't know, it's hard to say. I think it's also influence from friends, like the people you hang out with, the people that, the music that other people like, and say, oh, you should check this out. I think that's always very important to listen to your friends, and of course you develop a taste by yourself. I think I did like it the most in the end, because it was the music that let me be creative as a DJ as well. I think techno is probably one of the most interesting music genres there is to be playing out as a DJ, because you can really mix it up in a very creative way without clashing, making the records clash too much.
Well, you also mentioned that period where everything was new, the period of discovery, and then that being musically one of the best moments in your life. Is it difficult now then to be surprised by music, or?
I really wonder sometimes what it's like to be 18 years old again, and like for the kids nowadays, how to discover electronic music or music in general. You know, everything is there. Like this, back in the days, you really had to go to the record store and hope there was something that you liked. There was internet, but there weren't online record stores. You couldn't pre-listen anything. You really were dependent on the record stores and what they were buying for you. So they were also a very important source of what you were playing as a DJ or what you were listening to as a listener. I think nowadays everything is there, you know, like if you're bored with something, you just listen to the next thing. And also back in the days, I think not all the music I was listening to was really interesting, but I only had a limited budget, so I could only buy a certain amount of records. And once I bought them, that's what I was going to listen to, you know, there was nothing else. Maybe only the radio, but I think that's how I really got into the music, and also gave music a second, third, fourth, fifth, or 10th chance, because I just wanted to listen to music, and that's what I had. Nowadays, if you don't like something, if you check it on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever, you know, you just within 10 seconds you're on to the next thing. So I think it's a very different experience listening to music nowadays, and I don't really know what it's like actually. I mean, I know how I listen to music. I find it difficult enough already to find the music that I like. But I'm not in the same mindset. I really wish. I think there's still amazing music around. There's probably more amazing music than ever. But to find the right stuff and to get really amazed, and also I think the most important thing is to listen to something that maybe in the beginning you don't really like so much, but if you give it a couple more chances, you might really get into it. yeah, I think that's quite crucial.
Well, the part of this as well is, and especially from a standpoint of somebody who makes music and releases it, there has been this explosion in recent years, in especially electronic music, where it's more accessible to make it, and it's also more accessible to listen to it in the mainstream.
Yeah.
So, has that changed your approach to what you do?
To making my own music, you
Yeah.
mean? No, not really. To be honest, when I make my own music, I really try to just do what I do, and it's influenced, of course, by many things. Like it can be influenced by something I liked when, like 20 years ago, or something I like now, or it can really be anything. But I actually never listen to something that's just out and that's a big hit, and I think like, oh, let's try to make something like that. That's not really how it goes in my case, I guess.
This is going to be a difficult question to answer because it's probably different for every song, but what kind of thing would inspire you? What kind of...
I think it can be a general mood, maybe, you know, when I'm sitting in my studio behind my computer or playing on a guitar or whatever. It can be just the beginning of something can be one note. Okay. You know, it can really be notes and then the next note and then the next note will come instantly. If it's on a guitar, you know, like some of the tracks I've been recording for my album started out like this, just recording a few notes in my computer in Ableton and listening it back, looping it and playing some of the notes on top and creating melodies from there. And already at that point I can't really say what is the influence or where it started, because it really started with that one note and the rest just goes naturally in a way.